Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would love to have you join us there. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm also super pumped that I just launched my debut book this year. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and can be found on Amazon. I'm also a spiritual life coach for individuals and do corporate coaching as well. And I am super pumped. We have a super exciting interview lined up for you guys today. I have with me Sydney Campos. Hey, Sydney.
Hi, Pamela. It's so beautiful to be with you.
It's such an honor to have you. I'm super excited to hear all about the amazing work that you do in the world. But before we launch into that, I start my shows off with the same question for all of my guests.
Oh,
And that question is, are you ready?
anticipation.
Yes, right. We're building the anticipation. What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Hmm. Hmm. Living authentically every day to me means being completely present in as many moments as I can and fully enjoying all of what life is bringing to me and doing my best.
I love that. And how do you be present in the moment? Are there some tricks of the trade that you'd like to share?
You know, I think the simplest, I love simplicity
Hmm.
nowadays. I'm always practicing being concise and just the truth is so simple. And especially when we're present. And
Hmm.
being present is such a practice,
It really
such
is.
a deep practice. So, my favorite ways to practice presence are through breath, just like really slowing down the breath
Hmm.
and calming down the nervous system and being silent and listening to what other messages and guidance is here and communicated through other realms and other aspects. And what else is coming through is just like really deeply connecting with other people, like with you right now. And even though we're on Zoom, or, we're kind of in this other portal, it's like, okay, I can feel you. And I'm going to like slow down even more so I can pay attention to what's here and receive your presence. And it's like there's so much connection happening beyond what we're saying and what we're doing. And I'm a big fan of multidimensionality and awakening our subtle sensitivities and other ways that we can communicate sometimes more effectively than words.
Yeah, I love that. Such a beautiful answer.
Mm.
And I do want to hear all about the work that you do as a spiritual healer, an energy practitioner, etc. But I'd like to start first though by rewinding and sort of in just looking at the history and just hearing about your life. How did you get to this place? Because I just think it's so important to, to color this in with, at what moment did you start to awaken, or were you born a healer and you've always lived this authentic, present life from the get-go? I don't think I've met one person yet who hasn't had like an aha moment, like a rock bottom, I need to do things differently. So I would love to hear your answer to that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're all born healers. I feel all people are healers. We're all healers. Our sacred work that we end up sharing in the world as we awaken is our healing practice.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I was not born. I mean, I was born perfect, whole and complete, and totally
Right.
present and tapped in. And then through the perfect traumas and conditionings that I chose as a soul in this incarnation, I got to experience a lot of contrast and pain and suffering and separation and distortion and all the great things that make us human. And had a big wake up call when I was 24. And at that point, for about 10 years already, I had already been, alcoholically drinking and doing drugs and getting in trouble in various ways. And
Mm-hmm.
all the meanwhile, too, like being really committed always to social justice and having like a deep sensitivity about the world and about suffering and about wanting to make a change, but feeling so disempowered and feeling so confused about what it was like to be in a body and just how to be a human and how to interact with people. I mean, life was so uncomfortable. I was hyper empathic and psychic and just had no idea how to take care of myself. So drinking and drugs and all these other distractions were just, I mean, frankly, really helped me along the way. I don't know what else I could have done. I needed to kind of mute all the sensitivity I was dealing with. It was a lot to process
Mm-hmm.
until eventually it got really, my life was in danger and
Okay.
I had a choice to stop and do things differently. And so I asked for help, and that changed everything. Asking for help and starting to take care of myself, which at the time entailed going really deep into 12-step recovery, therapy, all kinds of healing modalities, and just getting sober, just putting down the distractions of drugs and alcohol to start feeling my natural emotions and
Mm-hmm.
starting to feel my intuition come back. And from there, just everything opened, and I remembered so much. And yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been about 9 years since then, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here and to be alive and to be an example of, what it's like to be fully alive.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I'd love to unpack kind of the area around kind of your rock bottom. I'd love to talk, if you can, about some of the emotions you were feeling, some of the fears you were feeling, some of the hesitations you had about weaning yourself from the substances that were numbing the pain and like keeping you feel from feeling. Because I know that I've talked to many people in my practice who are substance abusers, and again, I bring this up with no judgment. I'm bringing this up in the spirit of bringing awareness to this and helping them understand that there is always a way through. There is always a way out. There is always hope, regardless of your situation. So, if you could first talk about some of the emotions and feelings and fears and doubts that you had when you were in that rock bottom place where you knew you needed help, and then how you started to climb out of that deep, dark hole.
It's been a long time since I shared about this. It's kind of cool to feel how distant it all feels, you know?
Are you comfortable talking about it and bringing it?
Totally. I just feel like I talked about it so much, and it's so good. It's so valuable. I thank you so much for the opportunity because it is so we go through these rock bottoms so that we can teach and share and be an example of what's possible for other people that especially at this time, right now, I mean, it's pretty chaotic out there in the world and the way energy is moving through our bodies, through the planet, there's a lot of illumination coming through,
Mhm.
and people are just being skyrocketed into awakening and into seeing. Awakening means you're starting to see yourself. Awakening means seeing who you really are and seeing more of the reality of this world and what you may want to create, and being given your power back. Essentially, we're all powerful creators, and it's like, wow, that's very confronting to have that invitation. Wow, what kind of life do you want to live? Okay, what's in your way of living that way? Oh, I'm not really feeling. I'm repressing. I'm sleepwalking because I thought it was easier than feeling all these feelings that sometimes feel like they're going to kill me because I don't know how to be with them. We're not really taught. I wasn't taught. I had no resources, being thrown into earth as this super psychic, empathic being, feeling everything, processing reality at a rate that I don't think anybody else knew what to even do with. And then
Mhm.
not knowing this about myself, not having any examples around me that said, hey, you can be psychic, you can be tuning into other dimensions, you can be feeling what other people are feeling, you can be feeling what the collective is feeling. I just had no idea, and I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was crazy. I
Mhm.
thought in fact, I'd been diagnosed with having like a mental illness until I was honest about the amount of drugs I was doing, which kind of, create the semblance of a diagnosis. And
Okay.
so I think a lot of people are misdiagnosed actually as
Mhm.
having mental illnesses, and really they're just really intelligent psychic beings without the support, needed to take care of themselves in the right ways. So this is a lot of my life, the whole first 20 years of my life. I had other wake up calls. I've had a lot of near death experiences and, created a lot of chaos and danger and cries for help.
Mhm.
Um, Something else that comes up in this conversation is about, family imprinting. And, in each of our lives, we choose certain family dynamics to come into in each incarnation that teach us specific lessons that we're here to master. And it's not really personal. Once you awaken and you're in your path, you come to terms with the fact that it's no one's fault. It's like we chose certain things so that we could grow and learn. And
Mhm.
then the real healing can begin when we stop blaming people. So I love my family and my parents, and they just taught me the perfect lessons about abandonment and about, what it feels like to not have loving presence and support and security as a child, and
Mhm.
what it feels like to be overly self-sufficient, and to not trust that support is going to be there if needed, and to feel what it's like to be rejected.
Mhm. Mhm.
And um, these are like deep core wounds that then informed my whole path, and still there's layers to work on and be with, and they inform what I'm here to master and share, which is unconditional love, which
Mhm.
is unconditional trust and faith, which is deep presence and connection. And so I didn't know any of this when I was just losing my mind and overdosing on cocaine and drinking myself, into blackouts and walking into trap. I mean, it was really bad. I don't recognize that person that I was. I also feel like at that time I was so unhappy and uncomfortable being on earth. I was kind of like, entities and spirits, just come take me for a ride, and I'll go pop out into some other dimension where I'm much more comfortable just being pure energy and not having to be in a form.
Mhm.
Just come on and take me for a ride, which drugs and alcohol are great for, just poking all these holes in your energy field and letting other things come in to run the show. I did that for a while. But the moment of grace, gosh, I mean, the other thing is, I know a lot of people resonate with this. I was so outwardly focused. I was so obsessed with, if I could just make things look right on the outside, like get the right job, get enough money, have enough people that like me, very superficial. But if I could just have all those boxes ticked, then I can feel better. That will fix whatever's wrong inside. That will fill this hole. I was obsessed with like getting a job. At the time I was living in New York. I was just starting a career in advertising, and I was like, just need that next level of success, just chasing the next thing, and money was a big deal to me. Like if I could just get free of debt and make money, and then I could really feel free to figure out what my purpose is, and then I could be happy and fulfilled. Like there needed to be this linear plan that somehow I needed to figure out all by myself to then feel like I could be happy. And so this landed me in a therapist's office, and I was in such a, I don't know, I was in a lot of denial, and I went to this office thinking I was going to get like career counseling,
Mhm.
and meanwhile, I'm living this double life. I'm just starting this career, but at night I'm going to like, work. I was working in like a strip club, like on the side during weeknights, and working until 4 a.m., going into the office at 8 a.m., just like totally wild experience. And
Mhm.
and kind of got off on that too, like having the double life and being kind of secretive, and there's a lot more to it, but very dysfunctional and not healthy, like wasn't healthy.
Mhm.
And I'm showing up in this office thinking I could get some career advice, and then eventually for whatever reason, oh, and then I get a diagnosis a few weeks later, like, you're bipolar, manic depressive. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Whoa, like before you give me any medication, I don't think I can drink with that medication. So let me be honest about how drinking is actually really important to me.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I told her, like, wait a minute, like, before you give me a prescription, like, I'm drinking a lot. Okay, yeah, I'm also doing all these drugs. Okay, I'm actually not sleeping. Okay,
Okay.
I'm actually doing these other things that are putting myself in a lot of danger, including the strip club thing. And then I was doing some escorting type things and just operating in a lot of secrecy and, but putting myself in a lot of danger and acting, just really no regard for my own safety or life, frankly.
Mhm.
All cries for help. And then I tell the therapist kind of what I was doing, which I had told no one else at the time. Like I told the truth for whatever reason. This was a moment of grace. It was like, I have to tell the truth.
Sure.
And there's an immense energy release. And what really hit me though was the look on her face. And it was so piercing. I told her the truth. And then the look on her face was like, it told me like, I can't believe you're alive. I
Mhm.
can't believe you're telling me this. I can't believe this is real. Like I just this doesn't compute. The person I'm looking at telling me these things doesn't make any sense. But
Mhm.
mostly I can't believe you're alive.
Wow.
And it's something rewired in me because I heard myself or I saw the reality of what I was doing.
Mhm.
And I realized I'm gonna die if I keep doing this.
Yeah.
And I and I don't want and then I don't want to do this. I don't want to die. I
Right.
want to live. So there was an opening. And I didn't go and get sober overnight, right after that. But soon after, there were a few other bumpy bottoms that had to happen, including getting taken to the hospital I was the kind of person that was going into nightclubs and then drinking so much. I would, get taken out on a stretcher and wake up in the hospital
Oh, wow.
and be restrained in the hospital bed because in a blackout I would be fighting the doctor that was trying to help me.
Okay.
So I was just at that level. And so that was another rock bottom where I'm like, okay, this is maybe I want to live. Maybe there's another way. And then I eventually found my way into recovery.
Okay. Wow.
Mm.
You have it's such an amazing story of recovery, transformation, but I'm curious, what words of wisdom or advice do you have for people who are in the thick of it right now, who are totally dependent on drugs, alcohol, all of the, that whole lifestyle that goes along with that. And they're sitting there and they're saying, you know what? I'm scared. I'm scared to sit in the therapist's office. I'm scared to embark on recovery because I know it's going to get really ugly really fast as we start peeling back the layers, right? The reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm numbing myself out is to keep myself from feeling the pain. And I'm scared to feel the pain. What can you say to people right now who are in the midst of that rock bottom, again, whether it's drugs or alcohol or anything, who are saying, you know what, I'm scared to step on that path of growth and transformation? What can you say to coax them into that space?
Yeah, really feel so many. And, you know, drugs and alcohol, are one thing. And more rampant than that maybe is our addiction to negative self-talk and this inner criticism and judgment and self-hatred and just bringing awareness to like that we all have addictions. If you don't resonate with being an addict to different substances, it's like there are so many other ways that we numb and
Sure.
take ourselves out of feeling, and that can be just as painful, if not more painful, because they're so much more subtle and then can be so much more long lasting. So,
Mhm.
what comes through to say to someone who of that battle. mm, you know, I I have so much faith actually that no matter where someone's at on their path, no matter how bad it is, it's like the people that choose to really go through the most immense suffering in this life, in this body, are usually the most brilliant, like intelligent, psychically aware, tapped in, like ancient souls who were here to change the world.
Mhm.
Again and again, I've seen it over the years. It's like, And so your soul, your spirit has a plan. And it's not always up to us to like decide, but it is up to us to listen. Like the guidance is there when it's time, and it might very well be the time. And you might have been just avoiding and repressing and resisting, but maybe it's your time to say, you know, I want to live. Do you want to live? Do you want to find out what it's like to really live and experience the full spectrum of what it is to be human? Yeah, there is a lot of pain. There is a lot of challenge. There is a lot of growth. But there's also so much beauty and joy and love and connection, and everything that you want and everything you've ever dreamed of creating is possible here.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's like when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, with all the stuff that I had been through, with all the ways I was risking my life, with all the ways we do damage to ourselves through these experiences, it's like, it's just the thought of change. So it's so confronting. Like
Yeah.
we're such creatures of habit. Even if our habit is to be doing these things that are terrible for us, it's like
Yep.
I'm so afraid of a new potential where it could be like, wow, more ease and healing and calm, and I don't have to control anything. You know, a big part of maybe the core part of addiction is control. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like it's the response to feeling so disempowered in one's ability to control any of this reality, which is unknowable by all. And
Right.
yet, could we imagine paradoxically that as humans, we're here to, you know, remember, wow, we're not in control. What's it like to actually enjoy that state of being, to not be in control and to feel, to develop safety? So many of us who have this fear response and this, you know, immense fear of being in our power, which then addiction can be a great anecdote for. Like, oh, I'm such a powerful, brilliant, sensitive, genius being. There's no place where I fit in this world. Instead of thinking, well, maybe I'm here to lead and create a new world, you know, that's not always the easiest choice. Maybe the easier choice seems to be, okay, let me just try to fit in and numb out and just be like the norm, which
Mm-hmm.
feels to be like sleepwalking. Okay, let me just try that. And because it's like such a big responsibility to, and there's so much worthiness too called forth to say, wow, maybe I'm here to lead a different way. Maybe I'm here to create something incredible.
Right.
Maybe I'm far more powerful than I've ever imagined. Maybe
Right.
no one ever told me that. And so there, you know, there's a lot of layers here. But I just encourage everyone, wherever you're at on your path, everyone really, especially now, we've never been more supported in healing and just and meeting ourselves right where we are. We've never been more supported energetically, collectively, more and more are awakening. You know, like there's so much more knowledge, wisdom, sharing happening around conversations like this, where we can talk about, you know, trauma and imprints and the connection of family conditioning. And like we can see so much more. We can
Mm.
understand ourselves more easily. We're able to kind of process all the pieces more effectively, and we can move through our healing path in a more graceful way. It feels like more easeful and accessible than ever. You
Right.
know, it's not weird to talk about energy. Like people understand this now, that this is a
Right.
fabric of our existence. It's not woo woo. And
Right.
we have so much available here, and the hardest part is just asking for help, because there's a worthiness that comes there. It's like, I'm worthy of being supported, I'm worthy of being loved. There are people that want to help me, there are people that
Yeah.
care about me. I care about myself. I love myself enough to want to change and to want to believe that maybe there's a new possibility, maybe there's something else here for me. And there's just so many resources. You're never, the addicts, you know, really like addicted thought form pattern is, I'm alone, I'm by myself, I have to figure it all out by myself. The pressure of figuring this all out is too much, let me have another drink, it's just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not alone. This is the greatest illusion, is thinking you're alone, and the anecdote is asking for help.
I love that. I love that. Having that takes so much courage, right? To step up and say, I need help. I can't do this alone. But I think all of us who have in the past reached out for help have experienced that there is a community of people who will meet you and greet you wherever you're, in your reality, whatever that looks like, even if it's really ugly and messy and dark. There are people to support you. There are therapists. There are, our groups, support groups. You can join so many different modalities. And now, I mean, there is so much information that's available to us. I remember when I was growing up, I was having this conversation with someone recently. We didn't even have a set of encyclopedias growing up. So I remember when I'd go to a friend's house that had encyclopedias, I was like, wow, they have access to all of this information that we just don't have at my house. Now, virtually anything is a quick Google search away, right? So there's just tons and tons, just scores of information on personal development and self-help and spirituality and taking care of your mind, body, and spirit. And there's just so much information available to us at our fingertips. But I think the first step really is having the courage and being willing to step into that vulnerable territory. And one of the areas I wanted to go next, and you kind of hit on it at the end of your last response, was this whole idea of recognizing or realizing that you're worthy and realizing that you're loved and that you're valuable. Because I would guess when you were in the height of your drugs and alcohol and that whole lifestyle, that you probably weren't feeling super valuable, right? You probably weren't feeling, finding your worth from within. So I would like to hear you talk about, how did you find that? How did you harness your value and your worth from within during your process of recovery?
Still unfolding process. The process is still unfolding, and it's been such a journey of the outside, from looking at always on the outside to really looking in. And this is one of my greatest personal challenges, is reclaiming my own value.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the end is, if there is one, but it's an infinite unfolding in that depth of like, okay, wow, yeah, what is it like to feel valuable? What is it like to claim my own worth?
Mm-hmm.
What is it like to feel really deserving of love and intimacy and support, and to trust that it's there, and that I myself source that from within before I go out here looking for it from someone else? It's a
Mm-hmm.
big reversal. And
Yeah.
um, it took me a few years to come to, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
My recovery process, I had a lot of big breakthroughs and awakenings and like reality shifts and remembrance, like a lot of big peak experiences. But looking back, it took, every process is different. Mine's taken what it's taken time wise. And it actually really, to completely honest with you, I feel like I've had the most breakthroughs in worthiness and value this last year.
Okay.
Honestly, like it feels recent even. That's just what feels more alive for me to share about. I suppose it feels more true because it's
Mm-hmm.
closer. And 2020, I had this major identity crisis, and as I know many of us did. And thank you, 2020, for all the blessings and lessons and amazing time to just slow down and see ourselves and
Yeah.
detach from our externalized identities and sources of value. And around February 2020, I had this really cool identity shift of like, at the time it wasn't really cool. I was like, this is terrible. I'm falling apart. I've had a lot of dark nights of the soul. We all have them on the path of awakening. I mean, sometimes
Sure.
they can happen on a daily basis, but you get over them quickly and then you integrate and process. It's not this like month-long arduous depression or something like it used to be at the beginning. But
Right.
February, and I'm sure other people relate, energetically, there was something going on around authenticity and just highlighting in the collective the ways in which we're out of integrity with how we're showing up, what we're saying, what we're doing, but what we're feeling, is how we're feeling and what we're believing about ourselves actually aligned with, say, what we're teaching out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this big awakening, like the light was just shown on, oh my gosh, my business. Like, I don't feel like parts of my business are maybe not in integrity. Like, I'm not sure if this is true. Like, am I embodied to be teaching what I'm teaching about? Is this in integrity? And, you know, for me, my process was such that I just had to detach from it all and kind of go to this other extreme of like, okay, what's it like to not overly identify my value and worth with this brand and this business that I've created and this identity that a lot of people relate to in a certain way. Maybe they put on a pedestal or they expect certain things from. Like I was just seeing myself, as this brand, and I had derived a lot of value from it. And for me at that time, it was important to just separate and kind of consider, okay, wait a minute, like, and it was taking a toll on my nervous system. I felt I was like, wow, I don't know if this is supportive. I know I'm a spiritual teacher. I know I'm a healer. I know this is who I am, but is the correct, authentic way to be expressing this through the modality of, business and the way I've been sharing? Is this true? Or is it more authentic for me to do something else? And maybe that something else is to prioritize my health and well-being and maybe just do some other, to disconnect money, which
Yeah.
is where I was deriving a lot of my value, to disconnect that from my spiritual purpose and my mission. There was a
Mhm.
lot of collusion, and so I went through this fun experiment over a couple months. Even I was writing a book at the time, and I was like, maybe like what's it like to just be a writer, and maybe I'll just do that, and I'll get some other kind of job that's not caught up in the public sphere and isn't about building a brand or a following. And what if I just let all that go for now? And if the
Yeah.
opportunity to do healing work with people arises naturally, then I show up for that, but I'm not promoting anything. And I'm
Mhm.
not depending on this brand to be a vehicle of like supporting me, my livelihood. I'm not depending on the people that I'm here to help
Mhm.
to pay me to live. Like something about that felt really off, or the way I was relating in that context felt off for me. So I just had to disconnect. And I find on the healing path, it's really nice to play these games with ourselves, to give ourselves the space to say, well, okay, something isn't feeling in integrity or in total alignment. Can I kind of detach from that? And you might even just do this in your imagination, just as an exercise of what else might be supportive? What could be a different way of being or a different structure
Mhm.
that could feel supportive? And just try that on to see, okay, cool. And for me, that meant like applying to some jobs. And I've worked for myself for the last 5 years. So that's a major shift. But I was like, would that feel good to just, be a worker amongst workers and show up and do that and have my healing and spiritual work be something else. It's not wrapped up in business.
Mhm.
And of course I didn't get any callbacks or interviews or anything. Like it just, none of it was meant to be. And it
Yeah.
was kind of silly. It was, my spirit was laughing the whole time, like, what are you doing here? You've created this perfect vehicle to share your gifts and to show up in your purpose in the world. But I needed that time to disconnect, to then choose it again from a new intention, to say, oh, wow, okay, with gratitude, I'm choosing to do this. With
Right.
integrity, with authenticity, I'm choosing this. This is
Right.
perfect. And to honor it more and to not have
Right.
so much got cleared and was able to then show up in more integrity and to
Mhm.
disconnect. A lot of distortions were cleared, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just been so, there's been so much more ease. But I attribute that time to really working on my value and worth and saying, okay, my body, the health of my system, and my energy is more important than anything else.
Right.
Even this business, this brand, this spiritual mission, all of it, you
Mhm.
know, my
Sure.
health is the most important thing. And for me, that was really critical in taking a lot of my power back and really healing some deep set wounds around unworthiness and the way that I was seeking value outside of myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's important to go through those little inquiries as they come up and to see, okay, where can I source what I really need from within? Where am I sourcing from outside and
Mhm.
depending on other people to validate me, to affirm me, to
Right.
give me things that actually, wait, it only feels fulfilling when I can get that from within.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And what a gift to have that time to just go super deep and do that soul work. And, with every, rejection or non acceptance that you receive from one of these companies, like what a beautiful affirmation from the universe to just redirect, like, no, Sydney, this is where you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is, you get to choose the meaning that you assign to that, right? So
Yes.
you can either, take it as a rejection or take it as a non-acceptance, whatever you want to call it, or you can say, you know what? I can assign a different meaning to it. This
Yeah.
actually just affirms that I'm on the path, that I'm supposed to be sharing my gifts with the world in the way that I had been. But again, we all need that perspective. We all need to step away. And I view this process as, it's constant evolution, right? And I view it as, we're all working on our own murals, right? We're all working on our murals. And sometimes we're so up close to it that we can't see the beauty of what we created. So sometimes we need to step away and just see it from a different perspective. And then we dive back in and color in an area in greater detail with more vivid color, whatever. But we all need, it's this process of becoming conscious is not linear. We don't go from point A to point Z overnight, or we don't go there linearly. It's this constant process of diving in, stepping away, diving in, stepping away. And then we
Mhm.
emerge with a different perspective and kind of a newfound energy and a newfound awareness to bring to the work that we're supposed to be doing in the world.
Mm.
And
Love
that's a
that image. Mm.
thank you. Thank you. And that's a perfect segue to kind of where I want to go next is I would love to hear about all the different vehicles that you have to share your beautiful work with the world.
Aw. Gosh, I just love that. The mural. That is so right on. I'm gonna
Thank
remember that.
you.
That feels so good. That's exactly what we're doing. And oh, thank you for that. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of like of simplicity.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
love
just
that.
and I'm just celebrating the start to this year. And we're meeting on 111, and it's just this year feels so beautiful. It feels so awesome. Like I feel such a nice shift of just clarity, and so much support is here, and it feels like so many on earth at this time are like, given their assignment, and there's this feeling of like being fired up, like, okay, I know what I'm here to do. Let me find my team and let's do it. And it just feels so good. So yeah, let's see. Today we just had our opening call for our 5D Visionary Council. So we have this beautiful group assembled all over the world, like all women also, which is really beautiful, anchoring all different parts of the entire globe. It's such a cool constellation. And we're journeying together for 5 months to really, it's kind of an experiment we're doing, but we're, going to be anchoring in new ways of doing business
Hmm.
authentically, with integrity, and with great ease. Whole new way of creating, which is more about receiving and allowing, and working in a very multidimensional way to inform our creativity and innovation, and to guide our whole path. So celebrate the opening of that today. Feels beautiful. And I also train facilitators in the Akashic Records, which is one of my favorite healing modalities. And it's really a vehicle for opening up all the other kinds of modalities that each and every one of us has in terms of healing and, accessing our higher awareness and multidimensional guidance. So I love playing with people in that realm. And I have a lot of courses I've created over the years. Those are all just for free on my website and on YouTube. I like to make those available to whoever feels called to kind of, do some exploration and practice in energy healing and alignment, purpose alignment. Divinity Codes is one of the courses, which is all about exploring and coming into mastery of the energetics of power, purpose, prosperity, and pleasure/play. So those are kind of some of the keys that I like to play with people in and teach on. And two other things are a retreat coming up in Maui over the summer solstice, June 19th through the 27th. We're going to be having the Embodied Ascension Immersion, which is a 9-day retreat.
Wow.
Just playing in paradise and doing energy work and energetic practice, going to sacred sites, doing different initiations and ceremonies, and all with the intention of allowing people space to deeply connect with their own authentic presence and embody very high frequencies in their ascension journey, to
Wow.
be integrated in that process. So that's one of my favorite ways to play with others in person and the physical. So much can happen when we're together, and it's going to be so fun. And then really what's shown up this year, what's shown up in August actually last year, and kind of taking the focus for this year is a new social media platform I'm creating with an amazing business partner. It's called Ascend, and it is a new social community where I feel we'll all be playing by the spring. It comes out in April, and the intention is for us to have a new place collectively where we can share our gifts and contribute. And really, the whole platform is designed to inspire personal growth and expansion. And
Okay.
it feels totally different than anything we have available here, but I
Mhm.
sense it will be kind of on the level of Facebook, and we'll all
Oh,
be
wow.
hanging out there soon.
Sounds amazing. I have to
Yeah.
know more about it. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for it. And
Yeah.
you're also an author. In addition to all of that, as if that wasn't enough, you're also an author. You've got a book out there. I would love to hear about your book.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
my book is called The Empath Experience: What to Do When You Feel Everything. And we talked a lot about it in this conversation. The premise of the book was, it was the book I wish I had when I was born.
Okay.
And it's just everything I learned. It was written a couple years ago, so I'm really proud of it. And then there are also some things now, since so much evolution has happened. It's like I don't know if I still agree with that exact same terminology, but it's helping a lot of people on a daily basis. I get messages from people all over the world saying, thank you so much for this, and I finally have a word to describe how I felt my whole life. And
Wow.
I know there's nothing wrong with me. I know I just get to learn to take care of myself and
Mhm.
in a different way and become empowered. Being empathic is something that all humans are wired to be. Some of us are, born more sensitized than others and have this ability kind of activated earlier on. And if left unconscious, it can feel like a major burden.
Mhm.
But once you become conscious of this ability, it is a gift, and it can be used for great healing, and it can be used in such powerful ways, especially for self-healing. And it is such a beautiful way of being. And more of humanity is becoming opened in this way, whether you are aware of it or not. Just the way frequencies are moving now through our bodies and through Earth, highest frequency energy we've ever experienced in any physical, experience on Earth in any lifetime. And it's just unlocking our sensitivity more and more, and new gifts are opening up, and
Mhm.
such empathy and compassion is opening up. And it's so beautiful. You can feel it. You can feel more connection is available now.
Absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to echo or touch on that you talked about a minute ago was this whole idea of, when you were writing your book and, when you look back and read certain passages, you felt like chosen a different word or explained it a little differently. That totally resonated with me because I experienced it too when I was writing my book. Like while it was in editing, I was thinking, oh, I wish I should have said that differently, or I might put a different spin on it now. But the reality is, I think we need to apply a lot of forgiveness to ourselves along the way and just have compassion and empathy and just realize that, we're all doing our best from our respective level of consciousness, right? And wherever we were, we can all look back, whether we were writing a book or whether we made a decision in a, prior year that we wouldn't necessarily agree with now. That's where you were at that point in your evolution. So I think it's so important that we free ourselves from that guilt and that burden and that judgment and just realize that we were doing our best from that particular level of consciousness that we were at the time. And like you said, you're still doing a lot of good in the world by putting it out there, and that will still resonate with so many people. And I think that again, I think we can all apply more forgiveness and compassion and empathy towards ourselves, and just go easy on ourselves. And it's easy to look back and say, you know what, I should have done this, or if I knew then what I know now, well, that doesn't move us forward, right? That's not a thought or a filter that we run our thoughts through that moves us forward. We need to say, you know what, I was doing my best at the time. I have appreciation for all of my prior experiences because they've made me who I am today, regardless of what my past looks like, right? Regardless of how embarrassed we may be by it or how ashamed we may be by it, whatever the situation is, all of our life experiences help deliver us to this particular moment in time. So I think the best thing we can do is just put our boat in the stream, in the water right here, and move forward and charge forward with the spirit of growth and the spirit of love and the spirit of unconditional love, which is what something that you opened up the show with. So before I wish we could sit here and chat all day because it's just such a just such a beautiful conversation that's flowing just so divinely. But before we wrap up, I'd like to turn it over to you to share any words of wisdom or guidance for our audience.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that reminder too. And
You're welcome.
beautiful medicine, it's such an important practice, moment to moment. I just feel a lot of gratitude right now. Thank you so much. And for everyone listening in and tuning in. What an honor. What an honor to be alive. I mean, I sometimes feel overwhelmed with what an honor to be alive. There's only certain experiences we can have as humans. Like, we chose to be human beings, to have certain experiences that are only possible through a body that can feel sensation. We can easily be up in the higher dimensions and just being in, pure unified consciousness and with no emotional trauma or anything. I mean,
Wow.
pure peace, but we chose to come here. We chose to come here so we could feel, so we could experience music, so we could eat food, so we could have conversations like this, so I could connect with other people's hearts and remember parts of myself that were forgotten. It's all such a game. It's like, oh wow, right, this is a game. I chose to come here to forget and then remember and then pick up the pieces and enjoy that process. As the pieces are given back to me, how much can I enjoy this integration? And how can we bring lightness to every step of the way? It can be light, no matter how challenging and hard or tumultuous or emotional something may feel at first. It's like, okay, how can I bring lightness here? We are pure light after all. We have this form, but it's all made of light.
Right. So beautiful. Thank you. Such a beautiful message to end this interview on. If people would like to get in touch with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
Here's great. And just my website is sydneycampos.com. Sometimes I post some things on YouTube. You can find everything really on my website. And yeah, I would love to connect with anyone here who is in resonance. And thank you again. This was such a beautiful, beautiful sharing. And I feel so moved and just really honored to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. It really was such an honor to have you here. And thank you for sharing so openly and so vulnerably your story. I am confident that you have already touched so many lives by sharing the way that you did. So thank you.
Pleasure.
And to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you as well. I feel so honored that you're part of my community. And as you well know by now, I believe that time is a choice. And every single time you show up, it speaks volumes about your commitment to growth and transformation. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being here every single time. And again, I would love for you guys to check out my Facebook group, liveauthentically.today/FB, and get in touch with me or Sydney and let us know how we can help you on your journey. Thank you all again and have an amazing day filled with love and light. Bye.